Hey everybody, Shoni here with another episode review of House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 8, the season finale, The Queen Who Ever Was, which is a very silly title. So I am not even going to attempt to hide my disdain at this episode. And excuse my fan if you hear it in the background, it is quite hot again today. It's very humid this summer and I'm melting in my room. So I just woke up as well, so forgive me if my train of thoughts is not super quick right now. I'm gonna read off my jumble of notes that I still need to finish typing. I was trying to type it last night and I was just falling asleep. Not because it was boring to write it, just I was just really tired. Still kind of tired this morning. It's barely even 6:30 and I'm up. But so So there is a lot of talk online about Sarah Hess and Ryan Condal. These were the writers for this episode, and apparently Sarah Hess has written other controversial episodes, like the one where Rhaenys massacred the small folk for no reason, have a girl boss moment with Alicent, and have her dragon scream in the Green's faces before flying off into the distance. And I can kind of see that because I don't understand a lot of the writing choices that were going on. I said this in my last review that it seems like there's a contentious effort to purposefully not let the characters have their natural progressive arcs. Like, even if they're adapting this from George R. R. Martin's work, which apparently he's, had some words about how he thinks this season is going on is not a blog, which he often does throw some shade in subtle ways. He did this by talking about Amazon's Lord of the Rings adaptation, Ring of Power, which has been a crap show if you've been following that. It's been an absolute disgrace, and Amazon keeps trying to shove it down people's throat. And they were spending, I think, $1 million an episode. I don't even know where, and the script was just awful. And they had the rights to some of the books, and it's like they just threw the lore out the window, and people were very upset about that. As Tolkien has a very large fan base and very established fan base. And it's kind of similar with A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, it would be better if George finished the books, The Winds of Winter, and A Dream of Spring. But A Dream of Spring is just that. It's a dream. A lot of people have come to the consensus that those books will never be finished. Unfortunately, myself included. And this stems from a lot of people believing that George wrote himself into a corner because he was supposed to have a time skip for all the characters, and instead he elaborated more, and that kind of messed him up. And I don't think he can go back and retcon it, even if he wants to. So that might be why he continually takes other projects, or the 7 or 9 spin-offs, Game of Thrones spin-offs they have in production. Only which, like, I think 2 of them I'm interested in, which is the 9 Voyages of the Sea Snake, which is Corliss's animated now, which I think that's a really sound choice. It's a wise choice. But his animated voyages around like Shy and Old Valyria. And I think the Yi Ti spinoff would be interesting, which is basically Imperial China. They have some Duncan Egg stuff too, and Robert's Rebellion and this and that, which I mean, Robert's Rebellion live action I probably would watch. Duncan Egg, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I think it's just a one-shot sort of thing, so it's just one season of like 6 episodes, so I think I'd watch that too. I think Duncan the Tall is Brienne of Tarth's ancestor, if I'm remembering correctly lore-wise. But if George would just focus on the books, I mean, he even had this whole thing where he went to a cabin and locked himself in a cabin, and it was like publicized, and he said he's going to finish The Winds of Winter. And if he doesn't, we can mock him or something. And they came out and we mocked him, and he's like, "Why are you mocking me?" Oh, it's kind of wacky. I mean, writing is a hard process. I'm not gonna fault the old man, and he is old. But if he'd stop work, I mean, he even worked on the new Dark Souls game. He's been working on video games and TV shows and everything else, and doing everything but writing. At least that's what it seems on the surface. But anyway, he gave his comments, And people agree because Ryan Condal and Sarah Hess seem to be doing odd things to the story. Ryan Condal has not been shy about saying that he did not like the way Damon was received in season one. I think I spoke about this in my last review. And I guess that's why we got the Harrenhal arc of Damon being in a haunted castle the entire season. And Sarah Hess is allegedly a writer from Orange is the New Black. And uh, there was another show too. I can't think of it right now that fandom doesn't like her as well. But Sarah Hess also apparently wrote the quote unquote girl boss episode of season one, episode 9, where Rainey slaughters innocent small folk just to have a girl boss moment and have her dragon scream in Alicent's face before flying away into the distance and then claiming no responsibility for essentially being able to end the war, the Dance of Dragons, in that moment, which I kind of rationalized I was okay with. Like, she said it wasn't her place. I was like, all right. And then they did some things in season 2 here that I was like, okay, and then she died at Rook's Rest, so I felt like that was her character atoning for any transgression people thought that she had. But uh, I don't I don't know what was up with this episode. And then the Allison and the Rhaenyra sort of, I don't know, implications that there's some sort of erotic feelings there, which I believe Sarah has had something to do with episode 1. And then we also got that sort of vibe, like Rhaenyra saying, "There's room for 2 on my dragon. We can run away together." But then Rhaenyra, she was named heir, and she decided to fulfill her duty. And then now, 20 years later, after making all the same mistakes as Alicent and having the same cuts, uh, Alicent comes to Rhaenyra and wants to run away and abandon her children. It's oh my gosh. Ugh. Okay, so I'm gonna go through each paragraph of what I wrote. I got about only like 2 pages, which I need to type. I was falling asleep last night when I was trying to type this. Not that it was boring, I was just really tired. But let me just go through this because it's not, I don't think I can explain it in a coherent way otherwise. Also, just start with some positive. I like Sir Simon Strong. I love him. He was the highlight of this season for me. His little oh dears and his small clapping when Damon half-assedly bent the knee was great. And him saying that he's broke, but he still has the best clothing and wardrobe out of anybody in the scene is amazing. I love Sir Gawain Hightower. I am Team Black, but I love Gawain. He was a great character. I don't understand his scene in this episode. I will explain that later on, but I thought he was great. And Sir Oscar Tully, the young lord who people were comparing him to Lady Lyanna Mormont, but Sir Oscar Tully was great. His grandfather taught him well, and I think he's the smartest Tully we've ever seen on screen because Catelyn is a complete dumbass in Game of Thrones, and Lysa is even worse. Okay, so we're gonna talk about House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 8. I can just start with, because I don't think I wrote it as a bullet point, I forgot, but the Realm's Delight comment that Aegon wants to be the Realm's Delight when Larys is trying to spirit him away to Essos, and Larys says that he has all of his bank in, all of his money in the Iron Bank of Bravos. And Aegon says he wants to be the Realm's Delight, so I guess that bothered him growing up that Rhaenyra was the Realm's Delight. That was her nickname, like, she was just a beautiful young woman and everybody in the realm loved her and adored her. And Aegon was just in the shadows doing what he was doing. So I guess he wants to be loved by the small folk, which we've seen when he was crowned. When he rose up his sword and the small folk were clapping because they were forced to clap because they didn't want to die. Well, they did die before Rhaenys killed them all. They were clapping for Aegon, and he was, very happy. And he seems to actually care about the small folk. Like he wanted to give that one guy his sheep back, his flock of sheep back. And Aegon told Otto that their victory depends on the efforts of the small folk, as opposed to Aemond, who is just literally like, I don't care about the small folk. Let them go hungry. Let them starve. I don't care. I just want to do what I want to do. So, difference in that is night and day. And the difference is night and day between the small council meetings of Aemond and Aegon as well. But I'm not going to get into that right now because it's not important. So, starting out, when it comes to writing, I spoke about this last review. It's an organic process, and it doesn't matter if you're adapting something from a book. The writer can have their own flair, put their own little flair to things, kind of like The Witcher season 1 was decent, and the subsequent seasons were not, because they were forcing on a story that should have just been an original story and not, or something inspired in the universe and not the actual story they were meant to tell. I don't know if there's agenda with that in media or not. I will actually cover that topic later on in a different video, not related to Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. But there's something about writing that the characters come to life. And I say this as a writer myself, that you can't control a story after a certain point, and it evolves on its own, and you're just telling the story, and the characters tell you what they want to do, and it all happens naturally. Not in like a creepy way, but in a way like the characters are their own people, and they have their own wants and needs and desires, and they will write the story for you. You just have to listen and be receptive to it and write it out. And you can tweak some things, but for the most part, you have to follow what the story is naturally where the story is naturally leading you. So there's been a disconnect in the season, as they were following some things. Some things were organic, and then they weren't, and then they were again. And this episode is totally inorganic, and it's forcing the characters down different arcs that don't make sense. We had a scene of Lord Tylan going mud wrestling with somebody named Lohor. What the hell was this? I didn't need to see this. I don't even really like Lord Tylan that much. I mean, we see him in the small council meetings, and the last really impactful scene he had in the small council meeting was yelling at Aegon's young son, only for the kid to die, and Lord Tylan, it's not funny, but Lord Tylan to be like, oh, I'm sorry, Your Grace. And then Aegon saying something about being threatened. And he's like, was your life threatened too, my lord? Like, that was impactful, because he felt bad about yelling at the kid. But this is like, I don't give a damn about this. Ooh, Essos is so kooky, and they have blue hair like they were supposed to have, and blue beards like they were supposed to have in Game of Thrones, and they're mud wrestling, and they might be cannibals, and they're so different from the composed Westerosi. Ooh, so zany. I didn't give a fuck about that scene. What was that? I wanted to see Cregan Stark and the Northmen, the Greybeards, marching. I wanted to see some stuff happening at the Twins. I wanted to see some stuff happening at the Riverlands. I wanted to see the Tyrell host. I wanted to see the Hightower army. I wanted to see Daeron's face with his dragon. I didn't give a fuck about this. And apparently, this was supposed to be boring Alan of Hull's storyline? Or something from the books related to him doing mud wrestling, and that's why he was called Oakenfist. I don't really know much about that, but I just heard whispers of that. Whispers on wind. But what was this? I didn't give a damn about this scene. And it kept going on and on and on. And then Tylan has to screw the 14 salt wives of Lohar. And I'm like, okay, this could have been a one-off goofy scene. And inside the episode, which was edited and cut very, very much similar to the way the show was, it's like they had so many missing scenes, or they took out so many scenes that were important. Like, we even have cast interviews of actors and actresses saying they did certain things that they didn't fucking do on screen. Like, what was that? I did not like the mud wrestling. I did not like it at all. It was so stupid to me. And two, it was like, it was this, I don't know if it's this writer, the Sarah Hess, trying to insert Game of Thrones and tie it into this, which we don't like Game of Thrones anymore. Season 6, Season 7, and Season 8 kind of ruined Game of Thrones for a lot of people, especially Season 8, and we all gave House of the Dragon a chance. And shoehorn prophecy and stills and flashbacks and characters from Game of Thrones, which not necessarily the characters, they don't really matter, but implications that change the story that we got in Season 8 makes no sense. And then the same joke of calling Thailand Tywin, somewhat like the Rick on Dick on joke, and I think Season 5 with Bronn and Dick on Tarly. And then we have a Lannister meeting a tall woman who he isn't really attracted to, but he has to sleep with, or is implied he needs to sleep with. That is Jaime and Brienne in Season 2 of Game of Thrones. Which Season 2 of Game of Thrones was good still, but I don't want to be reminded of Game of Thrones when I'm watching House of the Dragon. I already know what's going to happen, and I know it's a crap show. I don't need to be reminded, because it pisses me off again that show was magnificent up until Season 4, and Season 5 had some moments, and then it went to crap. And now I'm looking at this again, and Season 1 was pretty good, House of the Dragon, and Season 2 fell off, and I'm wondering then if I should even invest my time in the next 2 seasons of House of the Dragon. So I don't really appreciate all of the Game of Thrones flashbacks. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is about Sarah Hess in this paragraph. Let me see what else I got. Oh, okay, yeah. So one of the cast interviews that people were talking about online was Bela's actress talking about wielding a sword this season, and we only seen her wield a crossbow. So that was a cut scene. Then there was some images or stills of Cregan Stark with the Northmen marching, and we only got the scene of the Northmen marching through the twins, which Jace secured. We could have had more follow-up on that instead of Jace pouting, literally pouting in the dark. We could have had a scene of Jace interacting at the twins again, or meeting the Northmen at the twins and just talking with them for a while, letting them know the game plan. We could have had anything, but apparently that was cut. Not Jace going to the twins again, that would have been cool, but apparently Cregan Stark's scene was cut, and Bela's scene with the sword was cut. A few other things were obviously cut the way the narrative is, like why, I mean, Aemon burning down, what was it, the Sharpstones, I think that town was called, and we just open up to him, the aftermath of him staring at a burnt town, and I was like, did I miss something? And then I felt that a lot watching this episode, which means they cut a lot of stuff. And again, inside the episode as well, they cut a lot of stuff for no reason. And they should have just ended it with the red sewing. The season should have ended last episode with the red sewing, and it would have been a stronger finish. And this felt like Season 3, Episode 1 it could have been. Okay. Okay, and 2, the time frame. I don't know what was up with the writer or whoever's choice this was to mess with the time frame now in the last episode of things. Then again, the Northmen making it to the twins makes sense, and being able to go over the bridge because it's been a while. I'm not, I don't mind about that. And the dragon riders going places quickly, like Rhaenyra arriving at Harrenhal very quickly. Again, that's on Dragonback. I'm not, faulting that. The ships just leaving, that's fine because they're not fast traveling. But it's only been at least one day since Adam claimed the dragon, and the dragon seed culling. It's like the day after, if we're honest. Day after, maybe 2 days, because we have the feast that night, and Jace is just meeting Ulf and Hugh. So maybe a week ago at the most. I don't even think it's been a week. I think it's been like 3 days, if we're being real. Adam and Alan had that conversation about Alan being promoted, and Adam wanted Alan to leave his silver hair unshaved. And do you guys remember Alan responded that the men respect him? His men respect him for who he is and what type of leader he is. and that him showing his silver hair could damage that he doesn't want people to know that he's associated with Corliss in some way and that he might be a bastard or he's some sort of relative. He doesn't want special treatment because he's earned the respect of his men organically. Okay, so we remember that Alan said that his men respect him. Why the hell was Corliss telling Alan that he needs to give him some pointers to help him because the men whom respect him now think he's too serious? What? I'm sorry, what? The men that respect Alan suddenly think he's too serious now and Corliss needs to help him fit in with the men who already respect him? What? That makes no sense. And then Alan, who has always been composed and has said numerous times to Adam that he doesn't want anything from Lord Corliss, and said that he's fine with making his own path in life, and he was adamant about that. Adam was the one who wanted attention from Corliss because Corliss never even paid him a look. Okay? Alan was comfortable with his station in life. It was Adam who wanted Corliss's wealth and name. Okay? That's what's been established. So for Alan to get whiny, I mean, I get he needed to get it off his chest, but for Alan to get whiny and not be brisk like he has been, brisk and abrupt, and just leaving Corliss hanging, not even saying any more words to him than necessary, to double back after Corliss tells him to leave 2 or 3 times, and for Alan to go into a tirade about how he was struggling on the streets selling fish from sunrise to sunset, and he watched Corliss and his true-born heir, Laenor, in their fur coats buy holiday ham. I don't understand what that was about. That was his true-born son, Alan. You know that. And you're jealous of his true-born son? Corliss and Laenor are walking around their literal town in their castle town, and you're upset that you've seen him when you live in his castle town because you are his bastard that he does not acknowledge, which Alan knew last episode, but now he's really upset about? What? What was that? It's giving the same vibes as Aegon being able to move and sit in a carriage and speak upright with Larys with no issue. When, if I remember correctly, the last episode, he couldn't even take 2 steps without pain. He couldn't sit upright in a bed without pain, and he had labored speaking. And now he's sitting in a carriage, a bumpy carriage. It's not even a wheelhouse, a bumpy carriage with some chickens in it. And he's just sitting upright his own self. And he's just talking like nothing happened. Where did his pain go? Is it a miracle? Did Orwell get him right that quickly? Is it the rum he drank? What is going on here? How is he suddenly not in pain? Or Daemon, never really admitting that he doesn't respect Rhaenyra's claim, which he still doesn't. But due to the Weirwood net, he saw some clips of Game of Thrones Season 8 and decided to believe in prophecy. When he choked Rhaenyra out for bringing up the Song of Ice and Fire, what was it, last season? And now suddenly he just bowed down, and he never admitted that he respects Rhaenyra because he still does not respect Rhaenyra's claim, but because he saw some White Walkers and he saw himself falling in the sea, and I guess people were saying that was Jon Snow walking through the blood during the supposed long night, more like the long hour, the dim hour. He saw that, and then he saw Daenerys. That was a different actress, but it wasn't Emilia Clarke. But he saw Daenerys hatching some dragons in the comet, the Mother of Dragons comet, and then he saw Rhaenyra on the throne, and he knew that his purpose was to serve Rhaenyra, which, I could buy that, but he still doesn't respect Rhaenyra. That was a plot point that was not finished at Harrenhal. He respects and feels bad for what he did to Viserys, but Rhaenyra, he still never apologized in any sort of vision. He still tried to cut her head off. he still saw her as the crown being too big for her head. It was never implied or shown on screen that Daemon respects Rhaenyra or her claim, and they never finished their conversation of him respecting her claim, because he does not respect her claim. He just respects the vision that he saw now from the weirwood and knows that he has to serve, whether he likes it or not. And it would have been nice for Daemon to acknowledge that he doesn't respect the claim out loud, but instead he spoke in Valyrian and had some half-assed joke, and he bent the knee. And all the River Lords, which, do the River Lords not know who Rhaenyra is now? I'm sorry, like, her dragon Cyrax even was being extra and flew over the Hall of Harrenhal where the host was. And Rhaenyra just walks in and a bunch of people just stop and stare like, who's this chick with the silver hair and the nice robes? And it's like, I'm sorry, did Oscar Tully last episode not say that they only respect Queen Rhaenyra's authority and only Daemon by proxy because he's the king consort? So nobody even bowed their head and said, my queen, until Daemon came up? They parted the sea for Daemon to walk through and speak to Rhaenyra? And for him to bow his head, and then suddenly they're like, oh wow, yeah, I guess this is the queen. We should follow Daemon. What? You just said you weren't following Daemon. You were following Rhaenyra. So why would nobody acknowledge Rhaenyra's presence as the rightful queen of the 6 kingdoms? I know they keep saying 7 kingdoms. Again, Dorne was not messing with them. That was some wishful thinking, some visualization, some projection on their part. But why would nobody acknowledge Rhaenyra at Harrenhal? The Riverland host, none of them. I guess maybe some of the lords weren't there, but still, nobody acknowledged Rhaenyra? Really? Not a single River Lord who follows the old ways knew that their rightful queen was in the room with them? And they waited for the king consort to bow down? What? Or Sir Alfred wishing to speak in private with Daemon and then going to stand directly in front of a goddamn weirwood tree? Are you dumb? And then he starts to talk his treason, which, he was beating the treason allegations in my mind. I thought he was just passionate, but no, we literally had to hear somebody on the wind, I don't know if that was Brendan Rivers, calling him a traitor before he speaks his treason aloud in front of a goddamn weirwood tree. What? Why? Oh. Or the show even referencing Dany being the prince that was promised when pertaining to the long night, when we know it was really just a dismal hour. Also, with the talk of the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy, why not include shots of Cregan Stark in the show like they had? Again, like Cregan's whole thing was giving Rhaenyra, Jace, Rhaenyra's emissary, the Greybeards, because winter is coming, and it was a serious threat beyond the wall. And since you brought up this threat, again, why would you not show Cregan and the Northmen more marching or doing something on the path to Rhaenyra? That was a missed opportunity, and if they really did have that in the episode and cut it out, why? To show Tylan mud wrestling? That's stupid. And two, I'm sorry, but why did Rhaenyra tolerate Ulf's disrespect at her own dinner table, and her own ancestral seat, and her own castle on Dragonstone? When she smacked one of her advisors for speaking reckless, but he was respectful, and she smacked the crap out of him. But you let this lowborn guy with a dragon talk crazy to you at your own dinner table? And why would she not give them the knighthoods already? I mean, I don't like Ulf, but him saying, well, then, make me a knight or whatever. She should have gave them the knighthoods to ensure their loyalty, because she doesn't know anything about them. And a dinner isn't really helping get to know them. And then just taking Adam because he's the most trustworthy is not helping things. I mean, it was right to take Adam to Harrenhal, but then Jace is left confused, wondering why he was left there, which my understanding would be because he's the heir. That's why he was left there, and Bela shouldn't be left alone. And plus, why would the heir and the queen travel together when they could be taken out together? That makes no sense. They have to be split up. Even royal families today don't do that. They all don't travel together because if something happens, they'll all be taken out together. Um, I mean, Rhaenyra needs to talk to Jace more about things. She just now told him the prophecy a little late, but she needs to talk to Jace, communicate with Jace more about his role of holding down Dragonstone as the heir of Dragonstone while she goes and does queen things, and then she can't always tell him everything she's doing. As for Rhaenyra, again, not talking to the small council, I mean, they weren't listening anyway. It's kind of obsolete on both ends. Aegon's small council and Rhaenyra's small council doesn't really matter at this point, so that's whatever. But Rhaenyra should have given them the knighthoods, gave them some sort of standing, some sort of land, some sort of wealth or something to ensure their loyalty. Not giving them anything and promising it to them in case they survive the battle in 2 days is not really cutting it. It makes no sense if we're gonna be real. That's like saying, "Oh yeah, put your life on the line again, and I might give you some Skittles when you come back, but only if you come back. I'll decide." No, like set up they have families. Well, Ulf at least, not Ulf, Hugh at least has a family. Set up their families, do the right thing, give them some food, make sure that the Dragon Riders feel completely secure in their decision and important because it is an important decision and it is an elevated status. Give them that respect and they will give you that respect back. I don't understand why that just flew out of Rhaenyra's head. Also, too, I mean, call me crazy, but I thought it was odd a few scenes ago, a few episodes ago, when Alicent was wondering why Otto wasn't replying back to her letters. And Gwen was kind of just like, oh, you know, he's probably just traveling. But then Gwen, in the same sentence, I believe, mentioned that Otto is traveling through a war-torn place to get back to Old Town. So I thought that was odd. And then we just have this one single shot of Otto Hightower in a jail, in a cell somewhere, in a cart, a la Jack and Hagar. I mean, we don't really know where he is. We just know he's a prisoner, and that's it. It just felt like a longer scene of something that was cut because why show us that now? That's not intriguing. That's not going to make me say, oh, wow, I can't wait to see what happened to Otto for 2 years until season 3. That's kind of just like, why the hell did you show me this at the end of the episode? You could have shown me this at the beginning and then another little teaser at the end, and then I would have been like, wow, you could have shown me who had him and some setup to that, and then, you know, Rhaenyra or something looking pensively out the window or something. That would have made more sense. Not just a 5-second clip of Otto in the dark looking confused and disheveled. I don't care about that otherwise, with no context. And also, why would Mysaria, who's been a champion of the small folk, as with like the brothel worker, Sylvie, that Aemon was hanging out with, and all the small folk really, kind of begging these high lords not to ruin their lives, why would Mysaria, whose whole thing this entire time has been about the small folk, that's the whole reason Otto bombed her house, okay? Because she wanted to stop the child fights. Because she's been about the small folk. That was literally her whole thing. Mysaria caring about the small folk. That's why she still has her network, her spy network intact, because they trust her. Why would Mysaria advocate for small folk in the strongholds of Rhaenyra's enemies being killed? Why would Mysaria advocate for that when that is totally against her character? That has totally been against her whole character arc up until this point. Literally until this episode. What is up her sleeve and why is she sleeping with Rhaenyra? That literally makes no sense, that she's gassing Rhaenyra up saying, yeah, it's the gods that gave you all these dragons and this army, and you need to just strike now. Yeah, some people will die, but it's your destiny. What? When has Mysaria ever spoken like that? She's never talked like that. What is this fan fiction? This is a prank. What is this? Why would she say that? She wouldn't. Okay? She would not say that. And then Kristen Cole. Why would Kristen Cole be sniffing Alicent's token out in the middle of the woods, out in the open with his brothers when he's supposed to be celibate and they already don't like him? We were shown when Kristen Cole was sending Eric or Arik, whichever one, on the suicide mission, that the King's Guard do not like or respect him. Nobody likes Kristen Cole. Nobody except the royal family. And in the royal family, it's only really Aemon, and Aemon kind of disregarded Kristen now that he's Prince Regent. Nobody likes Kristen Cole. Otto didn't even like him. Nobody likes him. Wayne never liked him. So for Kristen Cole to be sniffing Alicent's token in the opening with a bunch of men who already don't like him in a secluded woods, and then Gwaine shouting that he's effing the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, I don't even know how he came to that conclusion, and how he's ruined his honor in front of all of these men who do nothing. And then Kristen basically saying, oh yeah, well, if you say anything, it'll ruin your house's honor for a century. And, she wasn't married, so it's not like she's totally cheating, and I'm depressed, and we might die by dragonfire, so let me just snip this handkerchief and then rub it against my sword in the public. And then Gwaine just sets the sword down and just sits down, and that's it. What? Why even bring it up then? What's the point? Oh, and don't even get me started on Alicent, going from being a banshee, a screaming banshee for years, drilling it into her children's head because it was drilled into her head by Otto, that Rhaenyra was going to kill her children. For years. That's all she did. Okay? Literally years. That was her whole character. Twisting her children against Rhaenyra because she thought that they would die, because Otto kept telling her that. And then Alicent takes one camping trip and goes to Bridgerton for a few hours. And she comes back and she sneaks to see Rhaenyra. And she serves her children's heads up on a Valyrian steel platter for Rhaenyra. And aligns with Rhaenyra's crown. And then says she wants to run away, which Rhaenyra asked her like 20 years ago and she said no. Who is this? I was joking about the Bridgerton thing, in my last review. And then too, let me talk about Helena in a second, but, Alicent doesn't care about her kids anymore because she lost power? That has to be it, because before she got kicked out of the small council, Alicent was ride or die for Team Green still. And Alicent started all this by wearing green at Rhaenyra's wedding. Okay? I know Otto had a lot of influence in her life, but Alicent was okay with being a pawn, and as Rhaenys said, having a window in her cage. And then she tried to grasp power by being Queen Regent. She was turned down. She got kicked out of the small council. And then she goes for a swim and goes camping for a day and then comes back and decides to switch sides and then just leave. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. That makes no sense. And Rhaenyra reacted exactly how she should have, especially since Alicent basically clowned Rhaenyra when Rhaenyra tried to go and seek peace one last time. So, I don't fault Rhaenyra's reaction. That was a completely logical reaction on Rhaenyra's end. But Helena didn't shrink away from her mother's touch. This is the first time in all of 2 seasons she hasn't shrunk away from her mother's touch because when Aemon grabbed her, okay? That was the first time Helena has not shrugged away from her mother since a baby. Even Alicent when Helena was a baby, she couldn't hold Helena because Helena would cry because she did not like Alicent's touch. So she didn't shrink away. And also, Helena is suddenly a green seer on par with Laris and Bran and Brendan Rivers and Alice Rivers. That she came to Daemon and projected herself into his vision via the weirwood net. I mean, we could say because it's Harrenhal, and Harrenhal has a lot of magic, but uh, if they'd shown Helena doing this slowly, bit by bit, and not just like a dark horse moment, I would have brought it more. I mean, I still buy it because I believe Helena is that powerful, but if you just shown that a little bit more over the season instead of Helena just being terrified of people and being traumatized, like with, the small folk thing, running for her life away from the small folk, at her son's funeral being traumatized, sitting in her room being traumatized, not speaking to Aegon, walking up the stairs after the death of their child being traumatized. If you just shown Helena having just one moment outside of that, I would have brought it. I mean, I would have even brought the conversation between Helena and Alicent more, where Helena has some makeup on and her hair down, and Alicent said, "Let's leave," and Helena's like, "Girl, where?" And it's like, I didn't know you could talk, Helena. Wow. I mean, and Helena just sticking it to everybody with her prophecies that nobody was listening to before, that she only whispered, and she's been playing with bugs, and now she's talking to people and became a player. I mean, if this was always Helena's fate, that's cool in the show. If that's where they were taking her, but they should have just set it up more. I have no problem with those scenes. I thought they were cool, but there was no precedence. There's no premise for Helena doing this outside of just explaining it away as old god magic. So I mean, that's where my review ends. I'm at 40 minutes. I don't know if I'll cut this down or if I'll just let this be 40 minutes because what the hell? Tell me your thoughts. What did you think about this? I probably missed some things, but those were the most grievous things that kind of just had me like extremely jarred from one episode to the next, where literally last episode it was not the case, and now this episode everybody has fantastic things they're doing or declaring. It's just it's not show and tell writing. Like last week was show and not tell still. This week is let me just exposit every single thing this character wants just to progress the plot, and I'm not really feeling it. So what do you think about the fact that we have 2 years 2 years for them to get it together, this plot? What do you think about all of that? Just let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching my reviews this season. I did season 1 written reviews. You can check out my blog, storiesfromthenewworld.com, for that. And I will have more videos. I actually am going to be talking about dragons more. I have some of those videos already recorded. I just got to upload them. So I will be talking more about dragons in Old Valyria and actually Atlantis, if you guys want to subscribe for that. And I will be doing season 3 in 2 years if the world and YouTube is still standing in 2-3 years. Not a joke, but yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye bye.